everyone. I am your host. This is Jessica Koch. That's right. We are back here again with Profound Professionals. We have been running this interview series for, can you believe it? 8 years. 8 years you've been giving us love. You've been giving us likes. You've been sharing with us all the things that are important to you. And most importantly, and most touching to us, is you've been sharing the show with others. You just never know who needs to hear this message and whose lives can be touched by this information. Today, I have two amazing guests for you. I have Joe. He is the founder of Sell Nothing. Sell Nothing. I don't know about you, but I am ready to hear about Sell Nothing. And Michael. Michael is the author of Networking Unleashed. He is a speaker and a veteran, and we are just so honored to have both of you gentlemen here today. So welcome, welcome.
Thank you.
All right, Joe, tell us all about the nothing that you're selling. Tell us all about the nothing.
Well, it kind of figured out. I started selling books door to door. I did that for 6 years. And I realized that Sell Nothing is just based on the premise that it's a relationship. It's not the product. And how to, the book, How to Sell Nothing, is a logical way to make the emotional sale. And I think that is a key piece that we're missing nowadays. We don't have the soft skills. We have how to make the logical sale. We have that part dialed in, but how to make the emotional sale or relationship sale. That's what Sell Nothing is.
Well, relationships are hugely important. So, Michael, share with us Networking Unleashed and speaker and veteran. Thank you for your service and more. I'm thinking you're picking up what Joe's putting down. The whole relationship world of selling and networking are so tightly connected. Tell us how you got into that space.
Well, I'll tell you, the relationship, it's really important. You can see how it goes over many different platforms. It's really amazing when you want to network, whether it's one-on-one or whether it's in a networking environment. The
Mm-hmm.
first thing you have to be is yourself. Be yourself. Don't try to be somebody else. Don't try to do things that make you uncomfortable. So
Mm-hmm.
when you walk in or you meet somebody, smile. You have to put
Mm-hmm.
that smile on your face, and you know. But there's a mantra. There's a mantra that all networking has to do with. If they know you, if they like you, and they trust you, they'll do business with you. And they
Mm-hmm.
won't do business with you unless you have the first three.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really an amazing. You kind of go through a thing of I always say when you're going to a networking event, if you hand out more than 10 business cards, you're overdoing it.
Yeah.
You have to build that rapport, build that relationship.
I always say collect more, take more than collect more than you leave behind in that circumstance. Normally, you want to give more than you take, but in that
Absolutely.
instance, you absolutely want to gather more cards and more stories and listen more than you put out.
You always listen first.
Yeah, that's
Right.
right. Listen more than you talk. That's a really big challenge for an Italian mama. Let me just tell you. So, Joe, tell us with the Sell Nothing, I'm imagining people coming to you who are just beyond frustrated, feeling like they're chasing sales, that they're uncomfortable with sales, that just makes their stomach hurt. They love the transformation they provide, but they're just so frustrated because they're not actually able to meet their full potential personally and reach more and do more because the selling and the marketing piece is such a dragon and a burden. But tell us what do you see from your customers when they're coming to you?
I'll say that a lot of our customers, our clients, they can go out and have a really good meeting with someone. On a scale of 1 to 10, it's a great meeting. They're laughing at your jokes. They're asking questions. They come back to say, can you come back in 2 weeks? And I want to see your proposal. We have those great meetings. When we come back 2 weeks later, that meeting's cold. It's different.
Mm-hmm.
And people are saying, what am I doing wrong at the second meeting? The problem's happening at the first meeting. And what I'm saying, what my clients are looking for is in sales, in order to get the next step, there's
Mm-hmm.
two sales need to be, or two buckets need to be filled, logical and emotional. You have both buckets filled, you'll get the next step.
Mm-hmm.
We have that great meeting, both buckets are filled. The buckets are different. The logical bucket's filled with my voice. I'm the expert, and it's finite. It's like if you have a bucket of water, you can't put more water in it. You have a client logically sold, you can't sell logic anymore. Emotional bucket is filled with their voice. And emotions are weird and fickle things, and they change all the time. So I have to get them. That's my job, is to get them to say what they want, fill up that emotional bucket. When I come back in 2 weeks, that emotional bucket has holes in it. That's the mistake. We come to that second meeting, we think both buckets are full, and we start selling logic, and that bucket's already full. I never speak, teach, train, or sell until I get people emotionally engaged and fill up their emotional bucket.
I say you get them in the first meeting.
Yeah, one call close. Yes. Yeah.
I'm a whale harpooner. I'm not for real. I love whales. I would never harm one. But I'm just saying, you go after that big giant fish and you just take it down. You say, look, this is good for you. This is, and this is how we're gonna help. When it's you have to use your Jedi powers for good, but really, if it's you're selling something ethical and transformative, and it is, it fits what their need is. A lot of times you do have to, kind of take control of the situation and walk them through and guide them through to clearly the next step. I think that's another big mistake I see in the world of sales rookies is they don't give the customers ready. They're ready, they've decided, they're there, but they have no idea what the next step is. You must know what the next clear action step is in, in closing that sale. Press hard 3 copies. I know that nobody wants to be closed, but the truth of the matter is business has to happen in order for people to receive transformation and benefit, and for us to have resources and thriving companies, and I think blending the traditional, hardcore sales that I grew up with to the relationship and social media and automation, kind of marrying those together and finding some balance is where sales is going. What do you think, Joe?
I agree. If I'm having conversation with you, and whether it's a one call close or the next step could be the next meeting, it's the same process. But if I'm sitting there asking questions and you tell me what you want and why you want it, just sell that.
Exactly.
And closing shifts automatically. If you do that, if you get them emotionally engaged, closing just comes down to logistics. Sales already made. So
right. Fill out the form.
Yeah.
Get the details. So what's one tip you would give somebody out there from the sell nothing master in that world in your mind? What's something they could do today that would improve their skill set?
I think it's so simple, and it's part of a process. Literally, if I'm asking questions in that first part, I don't want to come in and do a show up, throw up, and just puke about how good and great and wonderful I am. No one cares. I ask a lot of questions, both logically and make the emotional sale. Before I start doing anything else, I'll say, hey, can I take a minute and just repeat back what you just said? I take time in my sales calls and my presentations, and I coach on this to repeat back what they just said. And I hear things like, well, Pallo, you said it better than I did. And mentally, I'm on their side of the table. I have not even started selling yet. So I'd give one tip. Take a minute. It demonstrates you listen, and you have to listen, but it gives you all the details and just repeat back exactly what they just said. It's phenomenal how that works.
I love that. And that is one of the foundational old school, if you would, traditional sales skills is really mirroring that other person. So not just what they said, but at the speed and in a little bit of the demeanor of what they said, not in a mocking way, but in a way that they're receiving the information. So I sell globally at this point, but nationally was a big thing for me. And if I was talking to someone on the East Coast versus the West Coast versus somewhere in the middle, I needed to model the energy and the style that they did business. Did they need it in a New York minute, or did they need me to take my time and really explain things so that they didn't feel like I was running some race past them over their head and down the road, leaving them way behind, So that's an important piece of it too, but that's an amazing tip. Thank you, Joe. Michael, Networking Unleashed. I am thinking people are networking like crazy. We're virtually networking. We're still in person. We're hybriding it. We're networking our tookuses off. And so many people are frustrated, I'm imagining, with I'm doing all this networking and it's not equaling dollars and it's equaling a lot of my time. And I'm feeling really frustrated. I need a Michael in my life.
Yep. Yes, you do. Yes, you do. It's really it's amazing when I go and I speak to either corporations or conferences. I usually say, "Look, all the 20 somethings, raise your hand. All the 30 somethings, raise your hand. All the 40 something and beyond, raise your hand." And I do that for a reason because the 20 somethings, I'm saying, what I'm telling you is completely foreign. You don't understand it. You don't know what's going on because after the pandemic,
Mhm,
okay, people lost touch. They forgot how to communicate with one another. And the 30 somethings, they heard of what I said, but they're really not doing it. And the 40 something, yes, they heard and they're doing some. So it's really,
mhm,
really learning how to communicate with the person.
mhm,
And the way you start doing that, of course, when you shake hands, you
mhm.
introduce yourself. You want to shake their not like a limp fish,
Ugh,
okay, but a
worse.
firm handshake. Look them in the eye. My kids grew up with
Mm,
me like this, and I used to have my friends all the time say, when you introduce your son, he shook my hand, looked me straight in the eye, and that sends volumes.
mhm,
But once you get over all that, you have between 3 minutes, 5 minutes, maybe even 10 minutes. You have to build that rapport. Okay. That rapport
mhm,
building, just like Joe was talking about, it's so important. And you see, you automatically find out. Look, scan their office or scan the room. Do they have pictures of a young child? Is it
mhm,
their grandson or is it their son? Is it little league? Is it basketball? Is whatever it is. You have to find that common level
mhm,
and talk about it. Have your customer, not your customer, your clients. Every person you talk to is a relationship, not
mhm,
just a number. And as long as you get that through your head, you're fine,
mhm.
you know? And you build from that point on. And I'm saying it like it's really easy. It just flipped off my tongue. Yeah, well, I've been doing it for 30 years.
Mhm.
Okay, somebody new is just going, what do I do? Just be yourself. Be yourself, build that rapport, and you'll be amazed at what will come out of it.
Yeah, and I think it goes back to something Joe said with making sure you bring and arm yourself with memorized list of really strong questions so that as that conversation lulls, you have the next question you can ask them to get them to give you more, and the next question ask them to give you more. I was listening to something on millionaire mindset in an audiobook, and one of the things he mentioned, which I thought was funny, is a friend had mentioned him. Oh, I heard you talk to so and so. They said you had the greatest conversation, and the person laughed to themselves because he pretty much remembered saying about 3 words in the entire conversation. But really, in that other person's mind, based on perception, right, and how people feel, which is the most important, that was the greatest conversation he'd had in months, you know?
Yeah, yeah. But one thing you have to remember is you have to remember to listen. Because
Mhm,
if you're thinking about your next question, you're not listening.
mhm,
Okay, because he may say something which, "Oh, did your son do that?" I was in the mortgage industry for about 10 or 12 years,
mhm,
and inside the cover, I had the spouse's name, the children's name, their birthdays, and everything.
mhm.
And one time, so and so, Joe, I'll say Joe, his son broke his leg.
Oh,
And 6 months later, when I called him, I'll say, before we start, Joe, how's your son's leg?
mhm,
And that immediately brought the walls down, and you
mhm.
can continue. So that's little things that you can do to try to you're creating that relationship, not a client, a relationship.
So much of what the two of you gentlemen are doing to help and improve the business community has such a great compliment because you mentioned make sure you're not thinking about the next question, that you're actually really listening, and Joe mentioned the technique of making sure you're repeating back to them what they said to you, so as you get that, ask that question, hear it, reframe it in a way that it's a fine line. You don't want to be annoying. You don't want to sound like a parrot, but sprinkling that mirroring style back in really helps you avoid doing that. I do say memorize your questions though and know what you're going to ask next, because people do get stuck, and then you're staring at each other, and you're either then going to dominate the conversation and talk too much and talk yourself right out of a sale, or you're going to know what the next thing to ask is to prompt them and help them along. So again, it's there is a fine balance, but the good news is this is a skill that anyone can learn, right? Some people are like,
Yep.
oh, I'm just not, I'm an introvert, or I'm a this kind of personality or that kind of personality, or sales just isn't my thing. But truthfully, it's a learnable skill. That and public speaking. And those are the two things that are going to bring the most sales in. Really learning how to speak and have some charismatic energy, because without it, you're going to be missing out. Really, we're at a point where we're inspiring people to move to action. And that's truly, in my opinion, the definition of a sale is you inspire them to move to action and take action on that next step to work with you. Right. So, Michael, could you give us a tip for the audience of things they could do today in the space of networking?
Okay, I'm going to bring you all the way to the end. Okay, all the way to the end of the trail, the follow up. Okay,
Mm,
one thing to remember, send them a handwritten thank you note.
mm,
Okay, it's not done anymore.
mm-hmm,
It's so, but when if you're the receiving end, if you're on the receiving end and you receive that thank you note, it raises, it's amazing, like, oh my God, he said thank you with a
mm.
thank you note. I have a funny story. I sent a thank you note to somebody. They were so amazed. And it's the first time they've gotten a thank you note that they sent me back a thank you note for my thank you note.
That
Okay.
is so funny.
So
I
it's
love that.
really
A thank you note for your thank you note.
a thank you note for the thank you note. So it's really easy. I keep, 50 of them in my bag.
Hmm.
And when I go to a conference, when I'm speaking, whether I'm a keynote speaker or a breakout, I always write the thank you note to the person who handled everything,
Hmm.
and I hand it to them. So it's
That's
really
great.
good.
Definitely write a thank you night note. Okay, Joe. So, since our very first interview series and our very first show, we've always talked about a cause that our guests care about. Um, so, share with us a cause that you care about.
Actually, there's two of them. The first one is work with a nonprofit out in Seattle, and we're helping startups, minority-owned startups, women-owned startups, grow their business. Just because the equity, the financial piece, is not equitable in that group.
Mm,
So we've had it's a Sell Nothing cohort, and it's with the state of Washington, University of Washington out there. So that's one piece. The other one is United Cerebral Palsy. Um,
mhm,
it's an organization I've been working with for probably about 4 years. The big event they have is Life Without Limits, and it's just really helping those individuals look at things where they don't have a disadvantage. What can they do? Those are my
mhm.
big.
I love it. I think we all need to seek where our strengths are and focus on that, no matter what our circumstances. And I think it's a beautiful thing when you're working with causes that help shine the light on where they shine and what their strengths are versus focusing on the other. So wonderful, wonderful causes. And if you're watching out there, and we know you are, and we're so grateful, this is a great time to hit that share button. We just might inspire someone to share time, treasure, or talent with the causes Joe mentioned, or maybe a cause you care about. Put the causes you love in the comments below as well, and we might inspire someone to support them too. Michael, how about you? A cause you care about?
Well, mine's a little closer to home. Mine is Tunnel to Towers.
Mm,
And it all started back in New York. I'm from originally from New York.
mm,
And this was an organization I was set up to help all the emergency responders,
mm,
but they've grown exponentially now to all the military members that come back that are unfortunately they can't work or do anything. They're
mm,
buying them houses and they're doing it. It's such a wonderful organization. And more importantly, when you donate to them, they they spend about 98 cents of the dollar. It was like minimal that they keep. And
mhm,
it's so amazing. So Tunnel to Towers, they've grown and they do such fantastic work. that, you know, I can't say it enough.
I love that. That sounds beautiful. So, really great stuff. And now we're going to get to the next piece of the show. So, get your fingers ready. Start typing in the comments the book that has inspired your personal life or helped you grow your business. We want to hear from you out there. We want to know what books you love and that are close to your heart and that you read again and again. I know I have a couple of books that I try every so many years. I either look at them again or read through them again and revisit because they're just so impactful.
Right.
Joe, a book that inspired your personal life or helped you grow your business?
It's the old traditional Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People.
A
Yeah.
classic.
Yes.
Gotta
And
love that one.
the
No
first
matter
time
what.
I'm
Go
sorry.
ahead.
So the first time I read that, it was my summer selling books. It was in North Carolina,
Yeah.
not knowing anything about sales, doing door-to-door sales. My manager said, "Hey, read this book." And we had Sundays off, but we go to a Six Flag amusement park. I was so focused. I'm sitting at an amusement park at a bench reading the book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. And I imagine people walking by saying, "Oh, that's so sad. That poor kid. He's at an amusement park and he's reading How to Win Friends and Influence People." But I've read it multiple times. It's an awesome book.
I would totally love to build a curriculum for high school with all of the classics because, like I mentioned, public speaking and sales, it doesn't matter what industry you end up in. It doesn't matter if you're an artist, a lawyer,
Right.
a doctor, whatever you are, you really need these skills. And I would love to see Napoleon Hill's library, Dale Carnegie's, Zig Ziglar's, all Brian Tracy, some of the greats that have really given us the tools to be successful, to manage goal setting, to manage mindset, to manage all these things should be an entire curriculum. How amazing would our society be? And that is actually something I'm building as a legacy for my adult children and my grandchildren. Is I'm pulling together the ultimate book list, and I am building out suggested books for them to use as a quasi self improvement, be the best version of you curriculum for self help books because there's just so many out there, and narrowing it down to the ones that are the most impactful, I think is huge. So thank you for sharing that one. How about you, Michael? A book that inspired your personal life or helped you grow your business?
Well, it happened to be a pretty easy question. It's a small book. It's called Raving Fans.
Mm.
Raving Fans by Ken Blanchard.
Ah.
And it's a very quick read. But it just shows you what you can do when you're not thinking about yourself. You're
Mhm.
always thinking about what you're doing for somebody else. And
Mhm.
really that's the main goal that you have for networking. And I didn't realize it when I was reading it. When I was in the mortgage industry, I would hand that book out to my realtors,
Mhm.
okay? Because it changes your whole mindset. And it's
Mhm.
such a small book, and you wouldn't believe it. But I read it 10 times and I picked up something different
Mhm.
every time that I've read it.
Well,
So, you
and
know,
Ken's powerful. He also wrote One Minute Manager, right?
yes, and I've read that and the 1 Minute Manager too, you
Uh-huh.
know, the second one. So I've read all of them, and all of them really have the same roots.
Mhm.
And it's really just it's amazing. But if you read it, you can put yourself in their place, and you're
Mhm.
like, oh, you know what? That's pretty easy to do.
Mhm.
Why don't I do it? Well, because you're thinking, well, they should do it for me. Well, no, take that mindset completely away.
Mhm.
And what can you do for somebody? What have you done? Have to bring it back to networking. It's how can you be a salesperson for the person you're speaking to?
Mhm.
Don't expect to get anything at all. Expect to give something.
Mhm.
And if you do that enough, it comes back around.
Ken has an interesting story too. I watched an interview with him on YouTube at one point that I think was 30 or 40 minutes long. I would watch every minute again. Actually, I would love to search that video out again and watch it again. When he originally wrote the 1 Minute Manager, he wasn't very much of a spiritual individual, and that book transformed him. And I believe he ended up writing, and don't quote me on the title, but I think it's something like Lead Like Jesus or something much more spiritual, because he said the success and the of that book took him on a spiritual journey for him, where he found something more impactful in his life than he had had before. He had no idea this little book that he wrote would go all these places, and then led him to do so much more. So I encourage you to try to find that video out there somewhere. It's a really great interview and a really great author. I'm so glad you brought him back to us. And I actually didn't know that book from
Yeah,
him.
no, it's an amazing book. If you read it, find it. It's out of publication already, but you
Hmm.
can find it. It's like $3 each, you know.
I mean, yeah, it sounds like I'm buying them for Christmas presents. It sounds like a
Yeah.
good one. All right. Well, talking about great and amazing and famous authors and people that should be put in the curriculum for our future generations. Joe, you're an author. Tell us all about your book, Sell Nothing.
How to Sell Nothing is a logical way to make the emotional sale.
Mm,
And it's just the process that I think is skipped, where you were saying earlier, we have sales talks. I think
mhm,
we should have sales questions.
mhm,
And the sales talks, that's it. We need to get them telling us what they want and why they want it. And
mhm,
we sell that.
mhm,
And that's the basis of How to Sell Nothing. It walks them through logical pieces. And the relationship sale touches on every part of the sale, whether it's the
mhm,
referrals. How do we draft? You need to have a relationship with that. It's how you close.
mhm,
How do you have introductions? How do you add on to the sales? It's all based on the relationship. Yes, you have to have a good product and deliver,
mhm,
but people buy from people.
mhm. Yeah, I love that, and your book sounds amazing, and I think that a fascinating thing, the process of getting to your personal why. Yeah, typically, many of the books I've read and some of the leaders will take you through like 7 layers deep, basically, where you go, okay, what is it that you really want? And then what is it that you really want after that? And then what is it you really want after that? And then you kind of break down till you get to that seventh level. And how powerful would it be as a salesperson, or you take your approach based on your book and go through that with your customer to find out what it is that they truly truly want, and really do what Michael said as well, and help them get that right, help them achieve that. And I can't see that you would lose. You're either going to end up with a customer or a friend for life, or both, and probably your biggest raving fan. you know
No, agreed. If I can't get them emotionally engaged, I'm not going to take the next step. That's my job as a salesperson.
Yeah.
And it's what they want, why they want it. And if I have them telling me that, the confidence you have in closing
Hmm.
is through the roof, because they just told you exactly what it is. You're just selling what they want to buy.
And fascinating enough is often they don't know. They don't
Right.
know what they want. And as a salesperson, you're really an educator. You're really there to guide them through a journey to help them put their finger on what is it that they really, really want. And when you do that, I think there is no space for fail. You've succeeded one way or another. So beautiful. I'm excited about your book. Go out there and grab it. If you're an author to a book, or you have a book that you love and suggest, we're going to be looking for those in the comments below also. And be kind. Joe's a nice guy. Share this video. Share it out so that we can get more people grabbing and snatching up his book. But we don't have not just one, but we have two authors on this call today. So Michael, share with us some information about your book.
Networking Unleashed is really, it's a step-by-step guide
Mm,
from the beginning to the end, from the smiling and handshaking all the way up to the follow-up. But it's
mhm,
also, it tells you when you don't have the client or the customer or
mhm,
the relationship. You get into a conversation and it
mhm,
could be 100% wrong. And
mhm,
just it's a way to find out how to politely excuse yourself from that conversation and move to the next one.
mhm,
So, after you smile and you know the mantra and you're building that rapport and it's all great. And then you get to that point and you're like, this isn't for me.
mhm,
How do I get out of this? Very politely. And that's when you walk up to the conversation, you don't immediately start talking.
mhm,
Okay. And again, I'm going to bring up this guy who comes into the networking events, hands out the business cards like they're playing cards, and says, "I'll call you all."
mhm,
You're going to throw that card out.
mhm,
Okay. if you give out more than 10 business cards, I'm talking about in a 3-hour event, more
Mhm.
than 10 business cards, you're doing too much.
Mm.
Okay. You have to build that rapport with somebody and then at the end of the conversation, here's the card. Or if you did your job well enough, they're
Mhm.
going to ask you for your card.
Mhm.
Okay. So that's how you can really tell the difference. And then you're going to go through it and follow up. But I think the most important thing I can tell everybody, stay organized.
Mhm.
Okay. The first networking event you go to, it's great. You have all these cards and everything. You're doing everything. It's great. The second one, the third one. But when you get to the fifth one, the sixth one, the seventh one, you're like, well, what? There's a trick. You take that business card, you turn it over, you write down the name of the event, the
Mhm.
date, and something you discussed,
Mhm.
and hold on to it. So when you're calling that person back or getting information, you're turning that card off to, oh, yeah, I remember that person. And
Mhm.
then you can speak about it. And you always, with your email, with your handwritten note or whatever, you always put that the note. Okay. Remember we talked about this or that? And then
Mhm.
that will jog their memory. So there's a lot of little tricks and trades, but networking unleashed, it goes through everything.
I love that. That sounds wonderful. And, I think so many people are getting back to their local in person networking groups of all kinds. And these are some good suggestions that we don't hear about as much anymore because there's so much virtual networking
Right.
happening. Also, I do the same when I'm in virtual networking environments where, as people talk or as people go around the room, I'll be typing and making notes about each of the individuals so that when I save the chat, I can put that together with my notes and know, who are the people that I do need to follow up with or circle back to, and what kind of story did they share. Like you mentioned, you're from New York. My husband's from New York. So like you said in that meeting room, scanning the room and finding that commonality, pointing out the photograph of the kid in the
Yes.
baseball team. Hey, I played softball when I was on the Andrews Angels. True story. Um, when I was a young girl, and those kinds of things, and making that connection, because really, relationships is finding those initial connections, and we're funny humans, like sports and location, and being from somewhere, we suddenly feel like we're family. Oh, you're from there, we're from there. We must be related somehow.
Right. Right. Right.
There's this not necessarily logical emotional pull, like Joe was talking about, that comes into play with that kind of piece. So I love that. I hope you gentlemen have been enjoying being on this interview space with me as much as I really loved having you. Um, what a great panel. I couldn't have put it together more perfectly. The universe landed it right on spot. So
Yeah.
thank you so much for being here today.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
Enjoyed
If
it. It's been
you're
great.
Oh, good. I've loved having you. So, if you're out there watching and you're thinking, "Wait, I'm an industry expert. I could help someone improve their life. I could help them grow their business. I should be on this show." Well, reach out to our team and we'll give you the details on how to get booked and scheduled, and we would love to feature you. I hope these gentlemen, as well as you watching, will be my hero and someone else's, and introduce us to other industry experts that would be perfect for our platform and our show, so that we can spread the word about how amazing they are too. Before we say goodbye, I always ask our guests to give us a final piece of information or inspiration. But before you do that, so save that little ace up your sleeve and think for a moment. Joe, is there anything else about you personally or your business that you didn't get to share? And then share with us your final thought after that. So give us anything else you might have that we didn't get.
I think the biggest piece is if we want to have that logical way to make the emotional sale,
Mhm,
uh, you can go to sellnothing.co. There's a free download that
mhm,
walks them through that process. How do you ask those questions? How to stay organized on that piece?
mhm. I
And I
love
think that's what people are really hungry for is I've got a sales talk. This can mesh right on top of that. But how do you get people emotionally engaged? How do you
mm.
walk through that and stay through that process? So sellnothing.co and everything's on there.
So .co, yes?
Yes, I couldn't afford the M. A Bitcoin company bought sellnothing.com. They want like 5 or 10 grand for the M. So
So
sellnothing.co.
yeah, you want to get it right. It's the
Right.
sellnothing.co and then
Correct.
stop. And you're good. I promise. You don't need the end. We don't want that one. So get the right one. That's wonderful. So how about leaving us with the final piece of information or inspiration?
Sure. This is something I've been coaching on for years. It's the principle that whoever, and there's two levels of this, whoever is talking is buying. In a selling situation, if I am talking more than you are, I'm literally buying your objections. That same situation, if I get you talking more than me, you're buying whatever's in my bag. That's one very key point. Second level of that, it works in leadership. When you're working with sales teams, and I do a lot of work with teams and sales leaders, whoever's talking is buying. I have to get the people who I'm leading to get them talking more than I am. Whoever's talking is buying is a key principle.
Yeah, I love that. Those are great thoughts. Thank you so much for your wisdom today on our show, Joe. Michael, anything else we didn't cover for your business? But then don't forget to give us at the very end a piece of information or inspiration. We need inspiring.
Well, I'll tell you, if you're going to networking events, okay, because if you're introverted, this is very difficult. Like I can't go out, okay, but you have to get in the mindset. And the first thing you have to remember is go alone. Okay. Why do you go alone? Because you go with somebody, you're going to stick with that person all the time. And you want to go away from that. Um, don't forget your business cards. Because even though I said only, it's happened so many times where the person says, "Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot my business cards." Well, you're an idiot. You never come to a networking event. Okay, so you don't do that. Um, you have to make networking a goal. Okay, you have to say to yourself, okay, I'm going to go to one networking event, whether it's 5 people or 500, once a week. Well, once every other week, something, anything, but just to have it within your plans. And the more you go, the better you're going to be. Okay, you can say, oh, you know what? I shouldn't have said that. I'll know that. And from table to table or something like that. That's all. Um, and it's just your networking is not just for networking groups, but you're networking with your existing clients. Okay. That is more important because you get more business from your existing clients than you do from new clients. So don't forget about your existing clients and network with them. And if you go on LinkedIn and you see that they know somebody that you want to get in touch with, ask them. Ask them for an introduction. Okay, so there's a number of things you can do, and it's all in my book, Network Unleashed, available on Amazon.
That's wonderful. Thank you both, gentlemen, so much for being on our show today. Thank you for watching and sharing and putting all those comments in so that we can hear from you about the books you've written, the books you love, the tips you believe in, the causes you love. Just remember to do all that so that we can get the word out for you too. And hit share because that's the best way to inspire someone else without even really knowing it. So, super easy way to spread around some inspiration and be a hero. All right, everyone. I'm your host, Jessica Koch. This is Profound Professionals. And until next time, I want you to be kind to yourself out there and be kind to each other. Bye bye, everybody.